This just happened, and it could change everything. Over the past 24 hours, Donald Trump has delivered one of the strangest and most politically dangerous stretches of public appearances we have seen in months, threatening Iran with massive destruction, rambling through a children's Easter event at the White House, making bizarre detours about eggs, Venezuela, and autopens, and then turning even a historic moon mission call into an awkward national spectacle. And now across social media and cable news, a bigger question is exploding into public view. Is the president losing control at the very moment the world can least afford it? Here's what we know so far. On Monday and into Tuesday, Trump escalated his rhetoric on Iran again, setting yet another deadline and warning that if Tehran did not make a deal, in his words, a whole civilization will die tonight. Reuters reported that Trump framed the moment as one of the most important in history, while PBS reported he also threatened strikes on bridges, power systems, and other infrastructure if Iran failed to comply. This came in the middle of a conflict that Reuters says remains deeply unpopular with American voters, even as Trump tries to project control and certainty from the White House podium. But here's where it gets interesting and disturbing. When asked directly whether he was winding the war down or preparing to escalate it, Trump's answer was not clear, not firm, and not reassuring. According to PBS and Reuters, he said, "I can't tell you. I don't know. I can't tell you. It depends what they do." Think about that for a moment. The President of the United States is threatening catastrophic force against a major regional power while also publicly admitting he cannot clearly say whether he is escalating or de-escalating. In a crisis, that kind of ambiguity does not calm markets, it does not steady allies, and it does not reassure the public. It creates fear. And then came the Easter egg roll. This was supposed to be a cheerful family event. Children, eggs, springtime, the First Lady, a carefully staged presidential photo opportunity. Instead, Trump sat with kids and started talking about Joe Biden's autopen. People reported that he told children Biden was incapable of signing his name and claimed an autopen machine followed him around, a charge the outlet noted has not been verified. He also joked that children could sell Trump's autograph on eBay for $25,000. That was the scene. Little kids around the table, crayons out, and the president ranting about signatures, Biden, and personal branding. Even by Trump standards, it was surreal. Now, this is important. The larger public Easter remarks, captured in transcript form by roll call, were already unusual enough. Trump spoke at length about egg prices, bragged that his administration made sure real eggs were used instead of plastic ones, and turned a children's tradition into a speech about politics, media questions, and national power. Separate coverage from The Independent and Newsweek described more off-script moments in which he dragged Biden and Kamala Harris into the event as well. Critics saw it as evidence that Trump could no longer stay on message, even at the most basic ceremonial appearance. Supporters, on the other hand, argued it was classic Trump, off-the-cuff, unscripted, and combative. And if that was not enough, the Easter event produced another viral moment. Trump reportedly asked the crowd variations of how he did with the voters that do eggs and mocked Kamala Harris and Joe Biden over IQ. Again, this was at an event centered on children. That contrast is a huge reason this story is spreading so quickly. It is not just what Trump said. It is where he said it, who was standing around him, and how little separation there now seems to be between a family event, a campaign rally, and a war briefing. That blending of settings is part of what has so many observers wondering whether the presidency itself is becoming one long, unstable performance. Let me explain why the health question is even part of this conversation. There is at this point no verified evidence that Trump was hospitalized over Easter weekend. In fact, PBS published a fact check saying there was no evidence he was sick or admitted to Walter Reed, and that several online claims were fueled by old footage, false assumptions about road closures, and even AI-generated images. The White House denied the rumors. That matters. Responsible reporting means separating rumor from reality, but it is also true that the rumors took off because people were already reacting to visible public moments. The speech drift, the abrupt topic changes, the odd pauses, and the increasingly apocalyptic tone. That brings us to the next moment that poured gasoline on this fire, Trump's call with the Artemis II astronauts. This should have been easy. Historic mission, national pride, a chance to sound presidential while celebrating the first manned moon mission in more than 50 years. The Hill reported that Trump congratulated the crew, praised their courage, and even said he wanted their autographs when they returned. But the call also generated headlines because of its awkward rhythm and the way Trump meandered through parts of the exchange, including talking about Wayne Gretzky in Canada before mission officials had to check whether the astronauts were still on the line. A moment designed for inspiration turned into another discussion about Trump's delivery and focus. And then there was the Iran rescue briefing. Reuters reported that Trump used the dramatic rescue of a downed American airman to recast the war as a story of military daring and presidential command. But even there, confusion and concern followed. When General Dan Kane indicated he wanted to keep the number of personnel involved secret, Trump immediately blurted out that it was hundreds and hundreds. Reuters said Trump later admitted, when asked about the direction of the war, I don't know. So on one hand, he is trying to look like the strongman narrator of an action movie. On the other, he is undercutting his own message with improvisation, loose talk, and contradictory signals. But here's where the story becomes even more volatile. Trump did not just threaten Iran militarily. According to PBS, he also claimed Iranian civilians are upset when bombs stop falling, that they want to hear bombs because they want freedom. That statement stunned observers because it is so far outside normal presidential language. Critics said it sounded detached from human reality and dangerously dismissive of civilian suffering. Supporters defended it as rhetorical exaggeration aimed at the regime in Tehran. Either way, it added to the sense that Trump is speaking in increasingly absolute, theatrical, and at times shocking terms, especially in moments when discipline would normally matter most. At another point, Trump veered into remarks about Venezuela, joking that after his presidency, he could go there, quickly learn Spanish, and run for president because he polls so well. Fox News reported the comment as a joke made during a press conference focused on Iran and a military rescue. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was one more free association detour from a president who no longer seems able to keep one line of thought separated from the next. But that is exactly why the clip went viral. When the country is staring at war headlines, energy instability, and rising costs, a sudden fantasy about becoming president of Venezuela does not land as comic relief. It lands as confusion. There were smaller moments, too, moments that on their own might be dismissed, but together create a pattern. Trump lashed out on social media at Fox News personalities, including Jessica Tarloff and Shannon Bream. He kept returning to old grievances and television feuds while simultaneously managing a military crisis. He also kept praising Melania as a movie star, including in public remarks that some outlets described as oddly detached and meandering. None of those things alone proves a health crisis. But in politics, accumulation matters. The public does not judge one clip. It judges the full sequence. And this sequence has been hard to ignore. Public reaction has been fierce and deeply divided. On social media, critics say the past day looked like a presidency in visible decline, erratic, distracted, and increasingly unable to distinguish between a child-focused holiday event, a war briefing, a campaign speech, and a personal grievance session. They point to the shifting messages on Iran, the children's table autopen talk, the astronauts' call, and the wild detours into eggs in Venezuela as evidence that something is seriously wrong. On the other side, Trump's allies say the media is once again overreacting, clipping jokes out of context, and trying to turn his unscripted style into a diagnosis. They say he is energetic, spontaneous, and politically dominant, not declining. Now, this is important because the stakes are larger than personality. If Trump's public behavior is becoming more erratic, then the consequences are not limited to awkward headlines. They touch war and peace. They affect whether adversaries believe American threats are coherent. They shape how allies read Washington. They move markets, and they hit family budgets, too. The Associated Press reported that Democrats on the Joint Economic Committee estimate Trump's tariff push could cost the average American household more than $2,500 in 2026, while the conflict with Iran is already adding pressure to energy prices. So when viewers see a president talking about bombing infrastructure one minute and wandering through unrelated rifts the next, they are not just asking if it is strange. They are asking what it means for their lives. And that is why this story refuses to fade. The concern is not based on one verbal slip. Politicians of every age misspeak. The concern is the combination escalating war language, inconsistent answers, rambling asides, children's event weirdness, social media vendettas, and a growing sense that the presidency is being conducted in fragments. Even Reuters noted that Trump's Easter Sunday profanity-laced posts and recent messaging prompted questions from reporters about his mental fitness. Again, questions are not proof. But when those questions keep multiplying during a live international crisis, they become a political story of their own. So what led to this moment? In simple terms, weeks of war pressure, rising domestic anxiety, hostile media cycles, and a president who increasingly prefers improvisation over discipline. Trump has always thrived on chaos. That is not new. But what feels different now is the overlap of global crisis and personal drift. The same day he was discussing life and death choices on Iran, he was also turning a White House Easter celebration into a strange performance about Biden, autopens, and political enemies. The same period that should have showcased calm leadership also produced confusion, spectacle, and viral clips that people cannot stop replaying. Here's the bottom line. Donald Trump may insist he is in command. His allies may say this is just Trump being Trump. The White House may correctly reject false hospitalization rumors. But the clips are real. The threats are real. The confusion is real. The public discomfort is real. And the question now hanging over Washington is no longer just whether Trump is being provocative on purpose. It is whether the presidency at this critical moment is being driven by impulse instead of judgment. That is a very different question and a much more dangerous one. So tonight, as Iran waits on Trump's deadline, as Americans watch prices rise, and as voters replay one extraordinary clip after another, the story is no longer just about one odd remark. It is about a pattern of volatility, like of blurred lines, of escalating rhetoric and scattered focus. And in a presidency, especially during a war scare, patterns matter more than excuses. The question for you tonight is simple. Are these just viral moments being exaggerated by Trump's critics, or are we watching clear warning signs from a president under pressure at the worst possible time? Let me know what you think in the comments, because this story is moving fast and the world is watching.